One,
We will first of all call the Ohio County Ditch Authority to order. Just to recall, we need to approve the minutes from the realignment pertaining to the solar garden that is in Lake Lillian Township on the Turstig property. That was the ditch reroute pertaining around there. So I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the ditch meeting on September 1st.
so move, Mr. Chair.
Imdeck moves.
I will
Is there a
second.
Nissen seconds. Discussion, questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Stand for Pledge of Allegiance?
Pardon?
Did you already stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I'm going to do the ditch authority, and then I'm going to go county board with the pledge then.
All right, thank you.
All in favor of the ditch minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is hereby carried. We will adjourn the ditch meeting, and I will call the county board to order, and we stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. You received copies of the minutes of the previous meeting of September, September 1st is our 15th. There's the discussion.
I will make a motion, we approve the minutes of last.
Motion is for minutes.
I'll second it.
Berg seconds. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is likewise carried. We also have 3 sets of minutes from the public hearings in Wilmer Township, the city of Blumkest, and in Whitefield Township for the revocation of the roads. Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve all 3 sets.
So move, Mr.
Imdeck
Chair.
moves, seconded.
I'll second.
Amon second. Discussion, questions? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is hereby carried. Those are approved. Pertaining to the bills that have been presented, the audit list, is there a motion?
I'll move the bills, Mr.
Amon moves. I'll second the motion. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is hereby carried. Also on the CARES funds, which has been in our Dropbox, is there a motion to approve those? as
I will
recommended
make
by the
that
committees?
motion.
Nissen moves. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second, Amon. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is likewise carried. Now I will call on Mr. Gear, please. And this is renewal of the JMBI solid waste. Mr. Gear, you can identify, please.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gary Gear, Environmental Services Director, here this morning. I guess kind of excited, actually. It took me 26 years, but I'm first on the agenda. So it kind of made my day here. So here it goes.
Make note of that, Mr.
Yeah.
Kleindl. I didn't realize it'd been that long, Gary. so-
Yeah, wow.
Terry,
Got to have a
remember,
goal.
the last will be first and the first will be last.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with the application before you this morning for the solid waste facility permit renewal of JMBI LLC, we're simply following our solid waste ordinance guidelines and provisions, and this is their annual renewal permit request, and it is for their DEMCON landfill demolition debris up in Roseville Township, Section 28.
Is there a motion? They meet all the requirements as
Yes.
part of ordinance. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Berg moves. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Nissen seconds. Discussion or questions? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion hereby carried. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would
Is
you like
there
to
a
sign?
signature necessary
Yes.
on that? Let's do that now, please. Thank you. Thank you, you bet.
Should try it with hearing aids.
Mr. Kleindl, reappointment of the county assessor, please.
Mr. Chair, you received a letter from the Department of Revenue. It says the current term of the assessor expires on December 31st, 2020, with the new term beginning on January 1st of 2021. Be aware that the board must notify the county assessor no later than October 1st if you plan not to reappoint. I'm asking the board today to reappoint the assessor. If that were to happen, then we would notify the Department of Revenue. And then in January, when the oath of office is administered to the elected officials, she then will also come in to be sworn in. And so I'm asking today for official approval to reappoint Val Savor as a county assessor for Kansas County. What will happen then is a copy of the minutes. Once you finalize them, then will be sent to the Department of Revenue, and then we'll start the process.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation.
I will move on reappointing the,
Commissioner Imdak moves to accept the recommendation. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Motion is seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is likewise carried. Thank you, Mr. Kleindl. Is Mr. Helene?
He was around.
Okay,
There he is.
thank you.
There he is.
Good morning,
Good
Sheriff
morning.
Helene. Good morning.
All right, got two items on the agenda for you. Let's start out with the first one, the authorization or an execution of the agreement for Resolution 2020-46. What that one is for us to have the ability to receive funds for the 2021 enforcement grant through TZD towards zero death. Total dollar amount for that one's going to be $56,350. Again, that goes towards impaired enforcement, seatbelt enforcement, speed, distracted driving, move over, and pedestrian enforcement. So if there's any questions.
I will make the motion that we accept or adopt Resolution 2020-46.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded by Mr. Nissen and Mr. Amon.
Yep.
Any questions or discussion? Mr. Imdak?
I do have a question. Does this come out of, so there's a lot of counties getting this grant. Does that come out of public safety or MnDOT?
Public safety.
Thank you.
Yep.
Further questions? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Proceed, please.
Okay. On the second one is going to be the New London Spicer law enforcement liaison contract or agreement that we have with them. One of the changes that you'll see that they requested this year was bullet number 3. In the event that the school needs to transition to distant or hybrid learning due to COVID, the school would agree to a daily rate of $468.47 when the county provides a liaison officer services. Again, the said sum would be paid just like we would if we were doing the payment scale of a full-time always there. So far, with New London Spicer Schools being in a hybrid system, Officer Dave Holmquist has been there every single day as currently expected, and I don't foresee any changes as of right now.
Any question for Mr. Helene? Mr. Imdak?
I'll move on the contract with.
We have a motion to accept the contract as recommended. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second, Mr. Berg. Discussion or questions?
County Chair, you want me to leave these with you and sign them and then just?
Yes, I'll just leave them back in the
Mr.
office.
Chairman?
Yes,
Just
Mr.
one other
Amon?
question. Eric, is there any special, out of curiosity, is there any special additional training that we have to have for our officer that we appoint there, dealing with a different environment? And how is that affecting us and financially? Is there an impact that's added to the cost of this officer? Is that something that we're just absorbing or like we do with the other schools in the area?
To answer your first question, is there training that they go to? Yes. So any school resource officers go to additional training. Plus, on top of that, most school resource officers also go to DARE. When you look at most of those trainings are free, except for the cost of the officer to attend, which is something that we end up absorbing. One of the things that we do as far as the cost for the position, let's just say for that example, we take what would be the officer's pay and we divide that essentially by 9 months. So, because they're allocated to the school for 9 months out of that year.
Right.
And then that's what they agree to pay. Holmquist has been the officer for quite some time there, does a really good job at it. And the school keeps requesting him to come back.
Thank you for that explanation. Appreciate
Do
it.
they have active shooter training at all in the schools especially?
Yes, they do. And actually, New London Spicer Schools is hosting ALICE training,
Okay,
which is something that they can teach to the students, teachers, et cetera.
okay.
Further questions? If not, all those in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion hereby carried. Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you.
And if you just want to interoffice that back to me, that'd be great.
Okay, I'll get it to Karen and then it'll be back there.
Okay.
Mr. Odens, good morning.
Say, speaking of Karen. I knew she was engaged.
Can you zoom it in, please, Larry? There you go. Thank you.
We'll just do that as an introduction and we'll flip it. Okay.
Thank you, Larry. Good morning, Mel.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, what I've got is a final request for payment. Accept the project and approve final payment is going to be my request. What it's for is for a township bridge in Mamre Township where we replaced a multi-plate with a 10x6 box culvert. It's on Shakopee Creek. For the sake of discussion, Mamre Township is on the western edge of Kennewick County, for those listening. What we do is we get town bridge money through our state aid account, and we administer these funds. So it's kind of a pass-through account that we work with. The townships are liable for up to $20,000 of the cost for the removal and all engineering, and we do all the engineering for the townships on these bridge replacements. So my request for, any questions on that?
No.
So, all right, Larry. So this project was bid last year in March, but last year was a very wet year, and Riley Brothers were the contractor. And so we mutually agreed with the township, the contractor, and the county that we would delay construction until this year when the water was so high that we couldn't get in there, and it was literally up to the top. So we all agreed because of the risk here that we would just wait to do the box until this year. So we did the box this year. We started it in May, completed it in June. It only took about 2 weeks to do, a very quick project. And so the amount remaining for final payment is the retainage. We do a retainage on these for $6,900.95. So it's my recommendation to accept the project and authorize final payment to Riley Brothers out of Morris, Minnesota for $6,900.95.
Chair will entertain a motion.
Also move, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Almond moves. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Nissen seconds. Discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is hereby carried. Have you ever seen such a swing in your life, Mel, as far as moisture?
No.
From the top of the ditch and the top of the culvert to the bottom of the ditch being almost dry.
Right. In fact, when we were in this discussion, last fall before it dried up. And we thought, well, what's going to be the difference next year versus just do it, you know? And, well, we just made the decision to take a chance because of the risk, and it worked. So we're fortunate, and they were able to do it in a couple weeks. So they just go pretty quick on gravel roads.
Well, it was a good, certainly a very good decision and very appropriate, and even as delaying some of the other culverts and so on we've done that before as far as the high water, but never have we seen such a complete turnaround.
Right.
Just phenomenal.
Well, lakes don't even have outlets. So, all right, yep, thanks.
Thank you. Is Jean coming?
She is, we're way ahead of schedule, so I'm
Yeah.
guessing.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd ask that we move up
The Prairie
Prairie Woods Environmental Learning
Do
Center.
that.
Those commissioners that are on that board are familiar, they had discussions about public hunts out there. And so we need to bring this to board today, asking board permission to allow several hunts that we do annually out there. I think after this year, I think at a reorganizational meeting, I would ask that the board, we would do these permissions right at the organizational meeting, so when they have their board meetings, they can authorize them automatically. And we needed to bring this before board, so we're covered through MCIT. And so that's what we kind of do. But the hunts include the Midwest Outdoors Unlimited bow hunting, which starts October 6th at the Westby Shooting Range. The deer muzzleload hunt starting on November 28th at the Westby Shooting Range. The Prairie Wood Special Deer Hunt with the firearms from November 13th to the 15th on the main property. With COVID-19, all the guidelines and the hunters and the helpers in the blind will this year will have to be immediate family or people that live in the same household. So that will change how they volunteer and how they do that. Also, their special meal lunch and stuff will be adapted to allow for social distancing. Also, other hunts that usually occur there is Pheasants Forever usually does a youth hunt on the main property in the fall. This year, that did not happen. Midwest Outdoors Unlimited usually does a spring turkey hunt at the West Bay Shooting Range. This last spring, that did not happen. So, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'm asking on behalf of Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center that we authorize these hunts.
I would make that motion.
Commissioner Nissen
I'll
moves. Is
second
there a
that.
second? Commissioner Imdak. Discussion, questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may, thank you. I'm just thinking about the blanket approval at our organizational meeting. You might want to, I agree with the blanket, but we might want to have Prairie Woods staff make sure that all of the hunts, whatever conditions are on them, are approved by them first before they.
Sure. You know,
Because
and
there's some, like, the COVID thing really changed some things. They really impressed on one of the operators that there'd be no fooling around in terms of, violating the COVID rules. And so,
right. And I think what happened this year, Mr. Chair, is that because we had Dave Peterson retired, and then so the new team came in, and so it was just one of those things. It was brought to the board, but it wasn't brought to here, and so we just did it. So either we can go back the other way too, Roger.
well, I don't mean approve them each one individually. I agree with the blanket approval of all of them, but let them submit that blanket
Okay.
approval to us before we just do it ahead
I
of
understand.
That's a good point. That keeps it clean and clear as far as the minutes. And I know that was as you said it, Mr. Kleindl, it's the MCIT, it's the insurance, because Candido County owns the property.
But have them submit early if I will.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Well, I think what he just said is true, that Dave Peterson was gone, and there's something new that we have a 3-person joint committee managing the facility now, and it just, they thought we were going to bring it up, and we thought, as usual, that they would give you the high sign, and so those things happen, and doesn't hurt to be prepared for next year, though. I think the conversation is well taken that we could probably do those at their initiative.
And I did I went out there and met with the staff and talked about some of the operations to kind of explain how decisions are made here and what the process is and just kind of laid some groundwork.
Mr. Chair.
Roger.
I'd like the record to reflect that it was Commissioner Nissen that forgot to bring it up last.
And I would refer to the former individual.
All those in favor of said motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is hereby carried. We will do the CARES update, and then we'll take a brief recess
Sure.
after that. Mr. Kleindl?
So I just wanted-
introductory, or Gene?
You're going to hear from Gene Spalding regarding the CARES update from the last meeting. I think you'll be impressed by looking in your packets. You've seen all the things that have continued to occur. The 6 teams that we have put in place have done a tremendous job, continue to meet. I think we're kind of now at the home stretch, and I think one of the things we know that I think we have a good plan in place. After Jean is done doing her presentation, I think we got a recommendation that we would continue to forward some extra funds to the EDC for the small business loan and nonprofits. But I'll have Ms. Spalding come up and do her update to you, and then I'll come back up and do the ask.
Welcome, Jean, and good morning.
Let's see where we.
Thank you.
Mid Minnesota.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, I appreciate the opportunity to be here again and update you on the CARES funding. You had in your packets the requests that are being brought forth as of today for the 6 committees. That would be the Health and Human Services, Public Safety, Equipment, Supplies, IT. And then we do have in there the payroll and the costs for those different departments. And then we've got additional requests that fall outside of that with schools, Prairie Lakes Youth Program, soil water conservation that we're looking at today. So the total request would be for $1,003,481.11. Below the county funds request, you're also going to see I broke out the small business nonprofit grant requests on this one because these funds are no longer part of the county funds that were allocated. We are now in this approving funds that were part of the City of Wilmer and Township's allocations. The EDC has requested that the county board approve all of the applications for small business nonprofit, therefore they not having to go to each governmental entity for those and keep it in a consistent approval process. But I did break it out so that it's not included in the allocation that is actually part of the county funds for CARES. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So I just will give you a little bit of time to go through the requests. All of the commissioners are on different committees, and so you are aware of the discussions that happen at each of those committees. And so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those at this time.
Any questions for Jean on the current months? We've already approved this, of course, as part of the minutes and bills to start with, but this is an easier chart to read.
Right. So now what I want to talk about real quickly is the cumulative report, which is the report that I handed out today. The front side of it is showing by month. When I go to report, I will report this week for August or for September, and so that's how I break it down. So the September category would be for those that were approved at the September 1st and September 15th county board meetings, and then the October would be today's approvals. So that just shows you the cumulative by both month and by breakdown of the committees. And then if you look at the back side, you can see how it's broke down in, these are the categories that I will report actually to the Minnesota Management and Budget. So those are broke down by month again, by the categories of administration, budget, personnel, diverted. So all of those are the actual categories on the Minnesota Management and Budget's monthly report that I will submit this week. I also broke it down so you could see how the allocations were done on an internal and external basis. You can see internally to date, we have spent or allocated $1,448,207, with the external being $1,900,000. 8692. And those external allocations, again, are the schools, Prairie Lakes, that'd be soil water conservation, and then the county's portion of the small business and nonprofit grants. So that's how the report kind of gives you several different ways to look at the information and kind of evaluate it. Again, there is the breakdown of how the small business for the county funds versus where we're at now with the city and township funds. So that particular program has allocated, let's see, they're at, well, that number didn't print off. I'm not sure why, but it's at about 2.3 million.
Refresh my memory, Gene, the Minnesota, I mean, MMB, you submit to, do they submit to the federal then, or do you have?
Yes.
So you don't have anything to go to the federal? It
No.
is all through Minnesota? Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
I was confused at that. I thought there was dual forms that you had to fill out. Okay.
No, we submit to the state and they're responsible then to the federal.
From there. Any questions for Gene on this cumulative sheet with the breakdowns? Okay. then- Listen, please.
The bottom is a total of $3,434,295 at the county. But is the EDC part, the 741 and the 560,000, is that part of that? Or is that a separate?
Yeah, nope, that is part, that 1.3 is part of, that's that economic, if you look at the economic
Yeah.
line, that would be the small business nonprofit grant portion of 1
So the
million.
total bottom, in the green, includes everything from the top to bottom? Because that doesn't,
Just for the county. That would
Just
be
for
the
the
county's allocations, so it doesn't
Okay.
include the cities and township portions
when you
of
say the
this.
county, which is the everything but the,
That's about 5.2, 5.6?
It's 5,235,792, so that would be the total CARES.
okay.
That's the county's allocation that we're responsible for reporting for. And then the cities and the townships are all responsible for reporting of their allocations.
Okay,
Further
thanks.
questions for Gene? If not, Mr. Kleindl, you're back with a recommendation or further discussion, please.
Well, as Gene just informed you, we have approximately 2.3 million left that we all have to count for by December 1st.
That's 1.8.
Or 1.8, excuse me, 1.8 that's unallocated yet before the end of the year.
Which is it, 4 point something or 2.3?
So you look
Oh,
at
I didn't realize it was,
on the back,
On the
Sorry.
back of the allocation breakdown, it has the
Okay.
unallocated that is the 1.8.
1.81496.
okay.
So we have until December 1st to allocate some of those funds. And I know we have some things requests that we're looking into, possibly some internet and broadband type issues, also working with other groups yet. But in the meantime, working with Aaron Backman, we understand that their allocations of funds are almost depleted. And so in order to keep the process going, for now, I would request that the board forward and submit another $500,000 to the small business and nonprofit grants.
I would make that motion.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Nischen moves, Commissioner Arman seconds. Questions or discussion on recommendation?
I would just,
And Gene can talk a little bit more with some of the things with the small business grants if you have any questions.
Okay.
I would just add to, because I made the motion, that in my view, this money should go to businesses that are struggling. That should be number one priority. And if we fail those folks and businesses go down the drain because of it, that's a tragedy. And it's also a blow to the county's economy, or the collection of sales tax money that we use for our roads and all kinds of other things that we need those folks to be successful at. So thank you
We
for
want to keep
bringing
it
that
going, and
forward.
we're
Yep.
trying to be as as
Yep.
thoughtful as possible, and again, once we were informed where we're at, kind of seeing where we're at with the budget, we may be able to come back and do some more, but right now, we can keep the process going.
Well, we've got a 60 days left, more or less.
Correct.
As
Right.
far as that. Commissioner Rahman, you had a comment or question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the report, Gene. I was at a meeting, I talked with, or listened to Aaron via Zoom the other day. I think we have 97, just for information, we have $97,000 remaining in that amount. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Approximately.
As of
So-
today.
It's a small amount of money when you look at all the business. And I know that even Aaron has been meeting personally and going to businesses that have not applied to make sure they haven't been omitted. And I guess I'd encourage everybody else to talk to their businesses that they know and encourage them to at least check. The board that Raleigh and I serve on are also dealing with the nonprofit groups. And I think they're pretty well covered based on the information and the guidelines we have now. I haven't seen any additional requests come in. But the key thing now is, how do you define 25% as the cutoff point? You have to have a show of loss of 25%. Those are the guidelines we established. But there's people who have lost a tremendous amount of money, and they still are on the 24% percentile, so they didn't quite meet the requirements. And I don't know how we're going to address that, but I think there has to be some discretion on how severely some of those businesses have been impacted, and we should reconsider. Now, based that the majority of people have, we might be able to go back and help assist those businesses that are just on that borderline of those guidelines, and I think that's the impact. So I support the motion, Mr. Chairman, for those reasons. Thank you.
Mr. Berg?
Commissioner Matson and other commissioners, I'm real proud, I'd like to say, about all of us sitting up here, that we do see that small businesses is a priority. And as I hear across the state, every county is doing things differently. And even some counties don't even include them. And I think we're just echoing the same feelings that we have to do whatever we can to support our small businesses.
Further questions for Gene or Larry? We've got a motion made and duly seconded. Mr. Imdick had a
Well,
comment?
just a reminder and a clarification. I touched the button here someplace. So that for those that are submitting, oops, wrong way. For those that are submitting, the deadline is December 1st, correct? Or is that the invoices, but then the work product has to be done by December 31st?
December 30th.
30th.
The service can go through the December 30th, but the invoices have to be completed by December 1st.
That's for counties, for cities, and on townships, it's different.
It's November
Earlier for them.
15th. It's November 15th for those. And therefore, the cutoff for receiving applications for the small business nonprofit, I believe, is the end of October, so that they
Yeah.
can work on getting those applications processed and move forward, and the reporting done in the timeframe that they need.
Raleigh?
And I would point out that extra money we just received may not be around until even the end of October, that any small business that feels like they might qualify should get an application in as soon as they can.
Yes.
Because waiting,
There's no reason to wait.
no. In fact, there's a reason not to wait.
Yeah. Roger?
I had to have one, Commissioner Amman's point about the cutoff at 25%. And I don't think it's our decision to make that, because EDC has been operating this program, but is that part of the consideration that they're looking at for those that are sort of in abeyance right now for having received grants, or is it there's still a lot of people at 25% or more that have not been served?
Well, what I can say is that their finance committee is meeting today at 11, and they do not have sufficient funding to meet the needs of the current requests or the applications that are coming to the meeting today.
Under the
Now-
current limits.
Right, under the current limits. And so this will definitely have, but, when we look at, I suppose we'll know more at the next meeting as to how many more applications are coming in and will continue to come in, and whether the committee, and that would, I think, be the planning team that you're aware of that, will have the discussion regarding the criteria.
Yeah,
and the-
we've looked at some of those that were very, very close to 25%, and those would probably, if there's enough money, be taken care of. No promises, because I don't know what's in the pipeline right now.
I think it's sufficient to say the next 30 days are going to be extremely busy in making some significant decisions, some that'll have to be very rapidly, because as the time frame continues, December 1st seems like a short way away, but there's a lot of work prior to that that has to be done. So the next 30 days, there will undoubtedly be decisions from those two committees that both of you sit on there that will have to be done right at that point in time.
Yep.
And yet, I do think that very clearly it needs to be restated that from the onset, there need to be guidelines. There needed to be parameters that were set. Because if our responsibility is to be prudent and judicious, we need to also have some of the guidelines that are set forth to do the best we can as far as the investment. And yet, as we see, the $500,000, maybe there's additional at that point, but I know as it sets in, it's going to be done. Mr. Emdek, you had a
A
question?
follow-up to my question, and the reason I asked it is, so those of us who have a network, if you will, of folks that we can reach out to, should we be encouraging those that maybe didn't apply because they looked at it and said, I'm at 22%, I don't qualify? Should we be encouraging them to have their applications ready?
Yeah.
Or, because
what I can say is there have been people that have done that, and so it wouldn't hurt to, the worst case scenario,
they do some work that they don't that doesn't bear any fruit, but, yeah, it would be frustrating for
process has
someone
been-
who said, I didn't know because I was at 23%, I didn't know I could qualify, and now, after it's too late, if,
I would suspect that if there is a change, there would definitely be a media
yeah, somehow
announcement,
that
so that-
message should get.
Oh, absolutely, they were,
And
I
I believe we're going to take
that
those
committee.
with the greater losses first.
Absolutely.
Right.
And
that's something, excuse me,
Well,
Mr. Chairman.
again, that'll be a discussion that this committee is going to be having as far as going through. And I think it also is important to state that no matter what decision is made, there will be not coverage for everybody. It isn't going to be perfect. There is no expectation that it's going to be, that it's going to be absolutely hunky-dory kumbaya, but there are going to be efforts that are going to be put forth to do so. We have applications in mind. I know that there are individuals that did not make the cut. We didn't discard those applications. They're still there, and there will be the diligence to be able to accommodate that as best possible. So I state specifically to you two gentlemen, there will be multiple discussions weekly and perhaps multiple times during the week as we crunch in on this deadline. There will be a lot of team coordination that has to take place, but everything isn't going to be perfect with it.
No.
It's just not going to
Well
happen
said.
at that point. So, further questions? Steve?
Well, just want to, just comment to let you know, it's been a privilege to serve on this committee and board with Raleigh and the staff that we have working with us, all of you people up above who have been administering the funds. It's been working very well. I'm impressed at how many people have called and thanked me. And it's like, no, it's not my work. We're just overseers of the funds. But I wanted to convey the message to you in the administrative area of it and how you're handling it, and how the other committees are dealing with the issue too. There's been a lot of positive results and a lot of heartfelt thanks that has been expressed to me by businesses that were on the fringe. And I think that this is very important. I hope that the money will be allocated to the businesses more so than for the nonprofits. Not to say the nonprofits aren't important. They're very important in our community. But right now, if we lose that business, we lose their jobs permanently, as with nonprofits. But I think right now the core values of maintaining those small businesses, which is the majority of the businesses in the county, are very small. And I think that's important. So I just want to say thank you again.
Further questions for Larry or for Jean? Again, best wishes. I know this committee is going to be extremely active the next few days, few weeks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Pardon?
We gotta
I got to
vote on-
call the question, yes.
Yes.
On the recommendation, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's hereby carried. We're going to take a brief recess.
All right.
call the county board back to order, and I will call on Kathy Nelson to present the needs assessment, just as a review. Anytime a facility is closed, whether DT&H, we had Kindle Hope, or the ICFMRs, the Candy County is required to do a needs assessment. Kathy happens to be the person in charge this time from the previous needs assessments, and this is the result certainly of CandyWorks DAC and the closure at that point. So I will call on you, Kathy, to present your data and recommendations.
Yes, thank you very much. And I just really want to acknowledge that I had several staff help me. We had, I think, almost 80 people receiving services with CandyWorks at the time they closed. And so Joan Mossick was very good about getting me a database, which included all of the people receiving services, who their case managers were, who their guardians were, so we could make contact as an agency with each of them. I had assistance from a variety of staff, and I also had assistance from our supervisors in our region. They were very good about having their workers contact us so that we didn't have to facilitate all the phone calls. What this needs determination, and I provided you with the basics of it, because what has to happen today is our county board has to make recommendations to the state. And in talking with Dean Ritzman, who is kind of in charge of these things at the state, at DHS, he said to me that based on county recommendations, they would go forward and allow different licensures to happen accordingly. So one of the things that I'm recommending based on the needs of several of the clients, several are feeling West Central Industries can meet their needs. I've had conversations with Renee at West Central, and Renee felt very much like they'd like to expand their license. They have a very large facility, easily felt that those who would like to be served there, they already have a waiting list, can be served there. And so DHS said as long as we have it recommended in our needs determination, they would have absolutely no problem going forward with that license. I think for the regular employment opportunities, the West Central and DHS can do that part of the license. It's more the DT&H specific services. We as a county, or you as a county board, have to approve, not me. I just make ideas to you and present. Secondly, the other thing that in this needs determination, that it appears there's a lot of people who have either retired, there's some that have passed away, some that are going to locations that they feel that can better meet their needs, and so have already made that choice. It's not a lot, it's just another percentage. So there's like 3 groups is how I see it. One group that felt they could get their needs met through some of the locations that already exist. One group that felt WCI could meet their needs, but WCI was at capacity, so they needed they need their license expanded. Then the last was this group of people who feel like CandyWorks was very specialized, just some very profound people with cognitive impairments and medical issues. And that group, for the most part, wanted to do a wait and see. They'd really like us to support the creation of an agency that can meet their needs in the Candy County area. They feel transportation will be an issue for this group of people and just the specific needs they have. Several had mentioned that adult day might meet their needs. I'm not sure if Bethesda has the capacity to meet all of those requests. But in speaking, now I said within this summary that I provided you, I did speak with Divine House Incorporated, who had approached me a couple years ago about wanting to open a DT&H in Candy County. And at that time, I expressed to Deb Shriver that we had no waiting list. We had capacity within our current DT&Hs to provide for the needs. So there was no need for further expansion. I couldn't imagine the county board could support any kind of DT&H expansion. So she just looked at some regular other employment opportunities in order to meet needs of disabilities within Candy County. But at this time, now that we could expand our DT&H capacity again, I did reapproach her to say, okay, 4 years later, there is the capacity to expand DT&H services. Are you interested at all in doing that at this time? She's very interested. She's done a lot of exploration already. She has DT&Hs in other parts of the state, and they are willing to consider that adult day population too. They do have one DT&H in the western part of the state, which has both the DT&H and the adult day programs located within the same facility. So we don't have to make any decisions in regards to that. All we have to, I'm asking the board to do today is to make some recommendations about how they would like DHS to proceed in regards to what they're willing to approve in Candy County.
And in your recommendations, Kathy, number one, just to reiterate, is to certainly encourage DHS to expand the license as far as the WCI, certainly. And whether it's Divine House or another entity to allow that expansion as far as a license. I will tell you this very honestly, members of the board, as a Candy Works DAC board, we had these intent discussions, and we really came to some of the same conclusions that you come. We didn't do a determination, but we knew, number one, the seniors program is going to be a need. But it is a huge impediment is transportation. As I have reported to you as a board and also that have listened, that, and to reiterate, that is probably one of the biggest reasons for the financial challenges, coupled with the seniors program and the lack of reimbursement, the lack of continuation support as far as the state. So we understand that. We did support, as a board, certainly going on record that WCI license should be expanded, and they're about 50% of the capacity, I think, Raleigh, is underused or not used out there. It makes good sense to do so. Many of the clients, consumers, people, many of the people that were at Candy Works, many of them live and reside within a very short distance of Wilmer, some within Wilmer, but they chose Candy Works 30 years ago or 20 years ago for a variety of reasons, was always very positive. The challenge that you will have, Kathy, and other providers are going to have, and Jenny will, as department head, is being able to advocate for and to provide reimbursement. So these entities that are expanding are going to be able to provide it at an affordable rate and are going to be able to cash flow it. That's the bottom line. So I guess as a board member from Candy Works DAC, I'm gratified in reading through and in listening to you and in talking with you, Kathy, that we're very much on the same page and very much support moving ahead with this. I do think it's the right way to go. That's just my take. Mr. Nissen.
Yeah, I sit on the board at West Central Industries, and they did get, I believe, already got permission to really quite a change in numbers.
Yes.
But they're going to face the same issues that you did, transportation, and the biggest probably out there is the reimbursement of the clients because of the Olmsted decision. It makes it much more difficult to find projects for these folks to work on.
Yep.
And unless we get some kind of relief there, it's going to be difficult for any DT&H to make the bottom line work, even with transportation. I think that's the biggest one right there, the sub-minimum wage issue. And that's all I have to say, but it's very important for these folks, and I tell you what, they love working. I wish some of the general population loved working as much as those folks do. And just to have some place to go and to do something, smiles on their faces, and it's just a wonderful thing to see. And we have to do what we can to continue to serve those folks. But it's not going to be easy based on the current environment. There's no question about that.
I concur with that, Raleigh. And the other aspect, Kathy, is, and you identify it, there is the very fragile individuals. I believe we had four consumers pass away last year. I do know that 2 or 3 have retired because of physical limitations that are aging individuals, but also many that are very profoundly challenged, that do need that constant care, and it's a respite. We advocated for that as a board, that it's a respite type of situation, and yet the state didn't look at all those technicalities and just, they would not acknowledge the service to the family and individual, and they would not compensate for that. It still is a far better place socially, mentally, physically, other than being in an ER, because that's some of those people are going to be into, and that's a pain. So thank you for that. Commissioner Imdak, you had a question or comment? Okay, Commissioner Berg?
I have a question.
Commissioner Rahman?
Thank you for your report and all the work you are doing, and also make sure to thank the board for their service for all these years. And that one question I have is, as far as the board goes, dissolving it, when does the board officially have not meet? When is that after the auction, or is there an official date that that board is not going to be acting as a full board?
I think Mr. Manson can answer.
When the entire process is approved through the state of Minnesota, at that point, they will accept our dissolution. There are several steps, Mr. Ahman, that we have to complete yet as a DAC board. I suspect that it will continue through or close to the end of 2020 before the complete dissolution is completely approved. There are several steps that have to be done at this point.
One of the steps is an audit, and I think that was the hope, to get that done in December, so it doesn't go into the new year.
Our goal is,
independent.
thank you, Kathy, our goal was, as we met last time, Commissioner Rahman, to have this completed by the end of 2020 for a respectful conclusion, but also not to continue to drag it out. And that's kind of a very crass term in a sense there, but not to drag it out. So, but when the state finally accepts, then the board will no longer, and then the assets, whatever's left, will be then passed to Candioi County. One of our biggest obstacles and opportunities as a board is to develop these suggestions that we would have to the Candioi County Board of Commissioners for the final dissolution and dispersion of the asset. We talked briefly last time about transferring. The transferring is automatic, but transferring the assets that would be eligible for, as you say, Raleigh WCI or other groups, to serve the individuals that are like the individuals that we're serving now.
I have a follow-up question. Who is going to make that decision?
The final decision would
board?
be by the County Board of Commissioners. The recommendations would be by the DAC board, but it says very specifically the assets are transferred upon dissolution. The assets are transferred to Candioi County. There are some limitations that the board has based upon the charter and agreement as well, but it provides some flexibility. Now, it's not going to be millions of dollars.
No.
Can I ask?
Well,
I say that.
Somebody said you had all that.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
And regarding the assets, I read in your recommendations that they should be, the assets after this is over should be given to disability service providers in the area. How thorough, and do you have a list of who that would be provided this time, or that's just a concept right now?
I just put that out there as a concept. Like Mr. Manson says, is that it would be this county board who makes that decision at that time. And to me, in a way, the people who are being served by Candy Works, they're going to be served by partner entities, so that's who probably should get the money. My other comment was that I would like to see, I think as an agency, some of the funds be used to transfer. I went to Candy Works last week, and it is boxes upon boxes upon boxes of paper information regarding each of the clients that have been served. That has to be maintained for 7 years, and how I understand it is the human, or not even human services, the county is responsible to maintain that information for 7 years. And so I feel that if we could hire somebody to transfer that into an electronic format as allowed by DHS, that would make much more sense for storage.
Okay.
And frankly, Kathy, that was one of the discussions that we had on a preliminary basis as a board. It was our fully intent to engage yourself, Ms. Lippert, Mr. Kleindl, in developing the final recommendations and, should we say, bullet points that'll be presented to the county board. There still is a lot of work to do yet. This is the second major step. There's lots and lots of work that has to be done yet.
And one other comment, Mr. Chairman, if I could. This is a transition, a new thing, going to something closed, and rather than building, we're dissolving something, which is a different process. And a lot of people, the thought process, you can go many different ways in what you should do with the assets. I guess I'm a little concerned, and I just want to express this to you or to the board also for those servants, the clients that we have out there now and finding placement for them, just like we did with the closing of the recycling center that had an impact on people. Maybe it's time we rethink how we're doing things and how we're going to improve on providing services for those individual clients. You talked about transportation cost. Commissioner Madsen mentioned that. That's a big part of the budget. Maybe there's some thinking we should do on consolidating the services there or service providers with other transportation places right now that are providing the services in the same facility. But I think rather than say we're going to give the money or allocate the money to another group, I'm sure it could be well used. Should we be looking at maybe allocating that fund to a rejuvenated group of, rejuvenate the money into a source where we can take the proceeds off that to continue and have funds available based on the investments to continue the operations rather than getting rid of it right away. Maybe we should save that money and put it into a special account that could be used to help the service providers of West Central Industries. Because I have this feeling that the state, after listening to Commissioner Madsen, that the state has not been following through on its commitment to these development achievement centers throughout the state. It's not just here. And I'm just thinking to be precautionary, we should maybe have you and some of the staff people and Mr. Thompson look at different ways we might be able to allocate those funds into a more simplistic form of ongoing funding rather than just something happen at once. It's just a thought. There's many different ways you can slice it up. I just wanted to share that with you, but thank you for what you're doing.
I think very, very clear is that Kansas County does not set the rules on this whatsoever. This is done by the state and federal governments. We can make all the suggestions we want. We can't develop separate funds. We can't pick and choose whatsoever. This is all the individual care plans that we're part of in this discussion, but it's person-centered, and we do not make those decisions whatsoever. All of that is set way above, and I mentioned many times the WIOVA law. We go back, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago, and the handwriting was on the wall as far as what's going to happen with DT&Hs. There's no questions about that. So, that'll be part of the discussions we have, but we don't, as Kansas County does not set the rules for this whatsoever, and to expect the legislature and Congress to change, I have waterfront property in lots of different states at that point in time.
Waterfront
Mr.
property
Indeck.
is pretty valuable stuff right now. I share Commissioner Almond's concern a little bit about just turning this over to the private providers, because if I understand that correctly, and I also understand the limits we might be working on, but they operate at a for-profit, and, for us to hand that money over to them, I don't think, doesn't feel appropriate, and we might find some ways, transportation may be one that we can, if we're going to help in an area, help with transportation. But again, I don't know how our hands are tied by the state.
Yeah, and those are discussion points that will be coming up in the next several months, but I just caution from a board perspective that we can have all the good ideas we want, but we don't set one single rule
Understood.
So,
with those aspects. So Kathy?
well, I'm sorry, excuse me. Just wondering if then, in the wording for the recommendation portion of this, which I do not have filled in, obviously, on that, is just not even to allude to the funds at this point at all. I mean, there's no need because it automatically is turned back to you for decision making.
Right.
Right.
So there would be no need
right.
for me to even talk about that in the recommendations. It's just we support current expansion and current to
Yeah.
meet the needs.
I think that's very good. Raleigh?
Well, it's talking about money and funds, and of course, the federal government prints whatever they need, but we don't as a state, and I'm hearing that we're looking at a pretty big budget deficit in the next biennium, so it would be wise to do what, in some form, what we can to conserve that money and use it to the best benefit of the clients that we serve. That's the key, is helping the folks we want to help. Because if we, unfortunately, and it seems like in every case, whether it be special education or anything else, the feds and the state pass a law having these things happen, and they fund it, or sometimes they don't even fund it, and they pass it right down to the county. And so we have to be careful with the limited funds that we're going to get out of the auction, and so that we at least have a control over that in some way. And that would be my two.
I think we could discuss for the next hour or two, but let's wait and see what the conclusion is. Again, it's not going to be a huge amount of dollars. It is not going to be, by the time we end up with our closures, and there's multiple expenses that have to be done in terms of salaries and that type of thing. So let's not make any kind of suggestion to decision based upon data we don't have at this point in time. So I like your suggestion, Kathy, just eliminate that, because it's a foregone conclusion it's going to come.
Yeah, Mr.
It's a
Chairman.
foregone. Mr. Almond.
Thank you, and I like the suggestions. I think it might be a good idea for us to consider a meeting with some of the board of directors, and once this is all resolved, and to have a discussion just like we're having now, rather than taking the time with county, at this county board meeting, and have a meeting for open discussion, involve some of those other service providers that might be interested, and have a dialogue about it. Because this is a new venture we're in, and rather than just dumping it on to another group of West Central Industries, we're going to have to look at a long-term approach to this, and I think that's where we need to get together and talk about it as a board. And it, like you said, Mr. Madsen, it's impossible and very hard to do that in such a short time frame. So I would recommend that we do something
That's the intent of the Candy Works DAC board, is to make some recommendations, but we're not going to be doing that until we get into perhaps the middle part of November at the best, maybe the end of November, because there's a lot of things that we have to close out. There's many expenses that have to be done at this point. So you might be talking $5 or $500,000. You're not talking 500,000. You're maybe talking 50. I don't know. So we're speculating at this point. I guess the chair will entertain a motion to, the comments that have been made, the compilation. Kathy has to fill in that, make a recommendation, but we would then authorize and approve the needs assessment, which nothing will happen unless we authorize and approve this forward and it's down to the DHS. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the needs assessment.
Also move, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is hereby carried. Thank you, Kathy.
Well, thank you.
This is your first needs assessment?
Actually, I've done just the small ones we have to do every other year
Yeah.
on the facilities.
Yes.
But that it does not detail like this.
This
No,
is
those
the
are pretty
major
easy.
one.
8 people and you just take a look and
I
you
think the
say,
last
yep,
one,
we
the last
continue
one was
to need
Kindle
you.
Hope, wasn't it? The ICF founder
Yeah,
of
the
Kindle
big
Hope?
one,
That was the big
I
one.
didn't, obviously was not part
That
of
was a
that
very
a long
lengthy
time
one.
ago.
Larry, were you involved in that one, Kindle Hope? Corky, you were you not? Maybe not. Okay, it's irrelevant.
That was
at
after,
this point.
yeah. Very nice job.
Okay.
Let's
Where are we at?
let's go, Mr. Kleindl, administrative updates that you would have. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. Write this down so you don't get germs, huh?
Only thing I really have is, we got AMC coming up November 4th. Make sure you mark it on your calendar from 9 o'clock to 11:30. It's going to be virtual, right, Mr. Indy?
Yes.
Also, Mel and I are trying to discuss, trying to set up a road and bridge tour. How do we do that, or meeting? And that, we might have to do that with drones so you can kind of see. I know Mr. Ammon's seen Grass Lake and some, I'd like to somehow show some of the work that is done. It's important to see when we do these projects, what we accomplish. And so we're trying to figure this out. We're thinking November 10th.
November 10th at, recommendation November 10th at what time?
Yeah, 8:30, 8 o'clock.
8:30? November 10th, that's a
8:30, we don't have to
Tuesday.
drive in.
9 o'clock?
8:30, 9 o'clock?
9 o'clock?
I don't know.
Well, that meeting might be,
Oh, I gotta see,
that meeting would be in person, right?
where'd that coming from?
We are doing some drone flights.
So,
it isn't.
We are
Yeah, the-
going to
the
meet in
virtual piece will
person, but
be-
it'll be a
you
virtual
won't-
tour for
we
in
won't be,
person.
we won't be in a van. In the past, we would take a road tour
Right.
and look at things. We won't be able to do that.
We're going to be in the
So I'm
public
asking-
works, I'm assuming.
I'm asking if there's some way we can do it so you can see the video of the drones. Now, can we pull that off by then? Yeah, we get some logistical things we're working out. But I want you to put on your calendar, so if we can pull it off, you have the date set
All
aside.
right, let's have a motion to set Road and Bridge for 11:10 at time to be determined and location to be determined, but then it locks in a calendar and the press is notified.
Also move, Mr. Chairman.
Almond moves, I'll second the motion. Discussion.
Why don't
Hearing
we
none.
just set the time now?
8:30?
8:30.
8:30?
8:30,
I'd amend that,
8:30.
amend that to 8:30, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor of Road and Bridge 11:10 on November 10th at 8:30, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Clarification that it was
So-
the Health and Human Services Building.
Mr. Chair, we also will have a board meeting on Election Day at November 3rd.
Third.
That might affect Kathy and Mark, and so we might have to figure a way, how do we
Yeah.
do some of that stuff. So that is a election day.
Right, November 10th.
So
Any further administrative updates for you?
I do not.
Mr. Kleindl? Then we'll start with committee reports, and we'll start with Commissioner Imdak.
I think Commissioner Almond did, so the Public Works will be downstairs in the community room?
Well, that might be easiest.
Okay,
Well, let's wait and see on that. It depends upon how the technology comes. So we'll wait and see.
all right,
Commissioner Indeck.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not going to say what we did at all. It was probably the busiest, of course, it's been the longest span we've probably ever had between board meetings with the way the calendar shaped up. But we had, as you did, I had AMC board meeting on the 16th of September. The next day, we had transportation policy meeting on 9/21, as a lot of you guys are doing, meeting regularly for CARES. In this case, it was schools in small cities. What's a little different here is on 9/22 and 9/23, we had the Transportation Alliance, which was normally would be the Washington DC fly-in in spring, but this time it was virtual and had got moved back to September. That was a pretty interesting experience, because I think with the exception of Representative Hagedorn and Representative Emmer, we spoke to every one of the congressional delegations and the two senators. And in every case, and I could be wrong, Mel, was Hagedorn, did he join us for a while, or? Okay, so it was only Emmer was the only one. So out of 10 of them, we had 9 of them. And I think in every case, maybe somewhat to the chagrin of Margaret Donahoe from the Transportation Alliance, the conversation got sidetracked to broadband, which I think was important and significant. And so, you know, of course, the COVID has really brought awareness of the weaknesses of broadband out in the rural areas. And so I was actually glad to see that happen. The 23rd, I also had MACAC virtually. And The next day, we had Transportation Alliance again, AMC Business Partnership meeting. We had the turnback meetings, that was last Friday. Monday was Glacier Lake Sanitary Sewer and Water, and then we had CARES Public Safety and CARES Small City. And State AIS Advisory Board, and yesterday was the EDC broadband. So been a busy 2 weeks.
Corky?
Okay, I'm up next, and first off, I'd like to remind all the commissioners that if you can turn in Administrator Kleindahl's performance reviews in the next 2 days, they're due by the 8th, so I appreciate that, and Commissioner Matson would as well. As Commissioner Emdek was saying, it's been a busy day, or busy time period. In some ways, it was like a fifth week, so I was thinking, oh, we got all this extra time. It didn't turn out that way. There's all these other things scheduled. We had the AMC. We all have had those experiences, and I had 3 different days to meet with the AMC Policy Committee for Health and Human Services and trying to come up with a platform for next year, and it's difficult to do over Zoom. We got there, I believe, and we're still working on that, but, we're really concerned about waivers and county-based purchasing as keeping that in the forefront as well. There was an open house at Public Works for the ADA presentation, and I attended that, and I also got a tour, and I really appreciated that. They got quite a nice setup there and doing a great job. At Prairie Lakes meeting, I had one meeting with Prairie Lakes Youth Program, and the good news at the last, we do get reports, and hopefully get another report tomorrow from them about financially. The last report is they broke even for the last week, so we'd like to, and even a little bit ahead, like to extrapolate that out, that, hey, it's going to be good going, but it's not going to be that way, I'm sure. And that's going to continue to be a struggle. We're meeting more often than we used to. There was a meeting in Marshall with 18 county mental health. CARES meetings, we've had several different CARES meetings like everybody else. And we all also, you didn't mention, I don't think, our township meetings. And we had 3 different townships we went to about turning back the roads. And that was very productive and very successful, I believe. PAC4 had its annual retreat, and a retreat on a Zoom isn't quite a retreat, I don't think. But it was very well done, and we looked at setting goals for next year on PAC4. I think I hit most of it. I think I'll let somebody else do it.
Commissioner Nissen?
All right, well, I had several CARES meetings as well. AMC Public Safety is the committee I sit on, and we had a good group of folks talking about our priorities for the next legislative session, and one of those is for correctional officers getting some more funding. The other one I don't recall right now, but it's another key issue. Woodland Centers met, and we had Ashley here. She covered everything that we talked about, and then some. We had I'm on a ditch authority with a ditch that runs into Swift County. I'm the only Candiway County representative. It was just a preliminary meeting, but it was also online, like almost everything else is. And also Prairie Woods met that evening, and I think things are going pretty well. The transition is complete now, and we've got some good people out there. The 24th, we all met with various folks from Wilmer Township, the city of Blumkest, and Whitefield Township, kind of a road trip. We met in person and on a farm play site, which is where Wilmer Township meets. We met at the Blumkest City Hall, which is kind of a nice facility. They've got the old fire hall there, and I think the school was there too.
Yeah, that's the
at
old
one
school,
point.
yeah.
And then we went to Sabea and met with the Whitefield Town Board, and everything went smoothly. There were it was a public hearing, but nobody showed up except for the town board commissioners and us and a couple of highway folks.
Bid Minnesota Development is something that I sit in on, and they have moved from their downtown location at the city hall out to the, I never can know, the technology, Midwest Technology. So they have an office there in the main building, and they've got a new director. Eric Day is doing a great job, and they've added some staff due to some CARES money available. Plus, they have money available on a loan basis for anyone that might want to shore up their finances. It's 0% for 2 years, and then it goes up, and I think it's a 4-year lifespan of the loan. I think that's something that people who have want to keep in business or want to improve their business, those monies, 2 years at 0% is kind of attractive. I had a lot of meetings too. CPT met Monday. Everything's going well there. They've doing some adding some hosting opportunities. West Central Industries met that afternoon, so I had another meeting. And we talked about that somewhat here. They have been able to get permission to increase the number of folks they service. And their numbers look pretty good because of PPP and some of the other funding sources that were available. Bid Minnesota has a committee called a Regional Transportation Coordinating Council, and they're working on how do we get people from here to St. Cloud or here to the cities, and how do we improve the opportunities to get volunteer drivers. Those kinds of things are all at the forefront of what we're looking at and working on. The Armors, the Early Emergency Service Board met. Nothing really new there. Prime West met on last Monday, October 1st, last Thursday. And Jim Prisbilla is kind of getting a little shaky on what the state's going to do with county-based purchasing. So we need to continue to talk to our legislators because we can provide as a county better service, better what's the word? We can give more money to the providers than the current operation does, and serve our people better through county-based purchasing. But we got to work on our legislators because the Department of Health is getting. It's not just the commissioner that gets appointed; it's the folks that have been there for years that are kind of bucking the system there. So hopefully we can turn the tide around, but it's not as good a news as my last report. That's all I have.
Commissioner Rahman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. HRA board's been meeting. I'm liaison on that, and we have received COVID funding for assisting those that are under dire straits on providing and paying rent to their landlords. That is available for people that are in need. I urge them to contact the HRA. Also, on the negative side of that impact is that there is no evictions that can take place during this time of COVID, and I have received calls from individual landlords. Some of are out over $20,000 in uncollected rent, and people are working, but they know they don't have to pay it because they can't be evicted.
That's the other
And that's an issue that I'm sure we can't personally take care of. But it's sad that some people take advantage of the situation, and the landlord is the person that ends up with the temporary loss. And just wanted to convey that there is some of that going on. I don't think there's a lot of it, but I just wish there weren't any, and I encourage people to apply for funds for the HRA who may be in need, and so the landlord at least can take care of his expenses also and pay his taxes, his or her taxes. Hawk Creek Animal Shelter, we're doing a lot of neutering, and we speeded up the process there, so where they're doing 50 in a matter of, a couple hours. Just incredible. So that has helped keep the expenses down too. The library board, we had the increase of 12% on the cost of our liability insurance. We decided to change that liability after reviewing what our current policy was from $500 deductible to $5,000 deductible, which it should not be any problem if we are impacted with that. Also, the good news on the Drug-Free Coalition, since 2007, when it was started by the board, Harlan, Mr. Madsen, you were probably involved in that. We had a 5% tobacco use rating from our kids in our school system, and currently it's down to 6.4%. Oh, excuse me, it was 6%, now it's down to 2.3%. That's on the alcohol. So that has been dropped substantially. And this was the report of 2020. And on the tobacco use, it was 5% back in 2007. Tobacco use now is 2019 is 18.8%. So we've seen an increase with vaping. Marijuana use was in 2007 5%. Now it's in 2019 it's 1.1%. And with the high school, it has dropped from 11.2 to 8.3%. The middle school was a 5% to 1.1%. Prescription drugs in 2007, middle school, it was 2.6%. Currently, in 2019, is 2.5%. And the high school prescription medication usage in 2007 was 3.7%, and currently it's at 4.6%. It went up slightly. Participation rate is doing good. We're getting good responses from the students, and we're continuing to work on that. I thought that might be interesting for people to understand what's going on there. We're working on the drug-free park policies throughout the communities that are involved. Also, the Convention Visitors Bureau met the other day, and we were talking about the county parks, and I understand the county parks have been doing quite well this year. It was a positive report despite the COVID-19 virus, and the overall impact was not as bad as we thought it was going to be on our county parks. People got out and moved around more. Well, one thing to encourage participation and not spreading the AIS, I asked for the committee to bring this to the full board of the Convention Visitors Bureau, and that's to consider their thoughts and also to refer to staff and our legal counsel with the county. If or if not, we can resurrect the idea of using boats, renting boats at our county parks. We used to have that years ago, and I'm sure it was due to a liability issue. But when we're looking at spreading AIS, that is one way it is done. Everybody brings their boats to with their campers to the lakes, and if they can provide a boat for a minimal fee, it would help save the whole environment with EIS spreading and all of our additional needs we have with our park system as far as more parking for the large boats and everything else, and flooding our accesses. I'm not trying to discourage people from buying boats, but it's an option then people could have, so they don't have to haul their 20-foot or 16-foot boat to the county parks every time. They could just rent them there. If we could look into that, or if you talk to me about that, Larry, I'd glad to.
We do that already. The park rangers rent out, they take the profits.
They do that.
They do rent them.
Games Lake.
And almost all have boats.
They've almost all got
Almost all
boats.
have boats.
That's not, I haven't heard that. Okay.
Yeah.
It must be,
So Big Candy East has pontoons they rent out.
Yep.
Yes.
I don't know about Green, but that was the.
Okay. Well, I'll talk with you later on that. Just a thought. That's about all I have for right now,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Just a couple items here that I want to mention again, the audits. We had several audit meetings. and the audit for Candioi County has been officially issued, and also for the Community Health Board has been officially issued. All of the requirements have been met. And again, I want to reiterate to the board and to, again, acknowledge Mr. Kleindl and Karen Anderson and Mark Thompson, Rick from the state of Minnesota, clearly identified very positive relationships with all of Candioi County staff as far as the response and the great relationship. So it's a very strong indication of very positive leadership, and I thank you for that, certainly, Larry. It's nice to have only about an hour and a half meeting with the audit. If it's in person, it got to be about 3 hours, right, Mark? It was usually about 3. So there are some advantages to Zoom with that, and very, very much possible. A couple of interesting points that I think are interesting. I do sit on several committees with the COVID in the State Department of Health and with the SHAC. There is a group of individuals in contact tracing, which is extremely difficult and complicated, but also the numbers. There's one category of individuals that is only a 1% category of all of the individuals testing positive. It's 1%, and that is certainly minority groups within our state. But 1% still is 100,000 people. So 100,000 people of that have to be contact investigated. And they are getting 1,000 to 1,500 cases per day. That is a huge amount of investigators that are having to be done. It's just overwhelming when you think of the detail that has to be. So if we think of it small numbers, we look at 10 or 20 or 100. You look at the state of Minnesota, and it's just incredibly enormous as far as the workforce that it takes. One of the committees that I sit on is working at trying to develop protocols. This is the first time any of us have ever done this, but trying to develop protocols and policies to deal with the magnitude and yet still serve the public in terms of protection and education. I'm learning an incredible amount about the details with that. UCAP, the building in Marshall, has received its certificate of occupancy. We do have a couple of challenges with the architect and a couple of the construction details yet that have to be ironed out, but I'm trusting that that will be done. We met a couple of times as a board here this last couple of weeks, and I'm hoping that it is resolved certainly by the I'm hoping by the end of this week, but it'll be probably a little bit longer before it gets to be taken care of. Mel, I want to publicly acknowledge you and Jeremy for the multitude of hours. We all talked about how simple it was as far as Blumkest and Whitefield Township and this Wilmer Township. There's hundreds of hours that have been put into that, and I mean that literally from staff time to get, and the townships, all the discussions and conversations to get this done, and it stretches over a long period of time. So I want to publicly acknowledge you and Jeremy for the amount of work getting in and getting this organized. It's been discussed for several years on a lot of different, and there are more to go. So thank you much for that, Mel. It was nice to have it done and get that finished up. I do want to issue a concern, and I did express this to AMC staff. While I support Zooms, and I think they're a necessary evil right now, and they're also a necessary blessing, but our Environment and Natural Resource Committee, on the final day, we only had 24 people on. And I am concerned about the participation, and I indicate that to you, Commissioner Imdek. My concerns that I expressed is that if this organization is going to be vibrant and is going to be effective, we have to somehow try to figure out to be able to get participation. And I know you've talked about it as a board, and I know the district committee talks about it, and everybody that I visited with shares that concern. We don't know the answer, but we have to be diligent, and we have to figure out, because we're in a people business. We're built upon relationships. So I state that We have to change some of our thinking, Roger, from AMC and all the organizations, but we have to be able to figure out how to connect with people to get active participation. I had a call yesterday that took 2 hours and we finally gave up. It wasn't on AMC stuff, but the broadband, the connections. So maybe it's the vehicle that we can get that for. So I just expressed that grave concern that we make sure we have people, we make sure that we have active people, because our life in our county and our state revolves around those relationships. So
If I
state
might
that.
respond to that, Mr. Chair, I agree with you. Our Transportation Alliance, Mel, that room at the Kelly Inn usually is full, and that would hold, what, 120 to 150 people? And I think at every session that I was at, we were maybe at 50 to 60, depending on the topic. So I agree with you. I had supported that, so the Association of Minnesota County Board allowed the staff and the executive committee to make that decision about our annual meeting, and also, I think legislative session, I think has not been decided yet, but I suggested that we wait until February to call the annual meeting, and maybe we could add a day to the legislative session, but I think that's probably an aggressive position, because it doesn't look like we're going to be in that great of a spot, even in February or March for the legislative session, in order to be able to meet in person. But yeah, it's tough now. I think all we can do is really encourage our members to get on those meetings. For now, we'll get through them, but I agree, it's not going to be. There'll be opportunities for using Zoom continually going forward, but I think those in-person meetings, so many of us will talk about how we almost learn as much in the backs of the rooms and in the hallways, networking with our colleagues from around the state, as we do at the actual meetings that we sit in on. And I think that when that time comes, and again, Congressman Peterson encouraged us to when we can again, to make sure we get out and have our presence known in Washington and in St. Paul.
Well, I appreciate the comments, and with that, we will adjourn the County Board of Commissioners.